How many of us remember when teaching just meant chalk and a board and a whole lot of patience? Now we've got algorithms in the classroom and students saying, "Ma'am, I'll just chat GPT it." As it becomes the most convenient companion for most of our students, they're sharing their personal lives, opinions, and struggles as one does with a counselor. Teaching in the age of AI isn't about fear, it's about design. We're not just educators anymore, we're architects of relevance. Like they say in Tamil, "Tanniril kaal veikamal neechal kattukka mudiyadu," which means you can't learn to swim without stepping in the water. Or how they say in Hindi, "Jo dar gaya samjho syllabus se bahar ho gaya." The one who's scared, let's just say, out of syllabus. So let's swap fear for foresight. Please welcome a visionary who's leading this charge, Mr. Russell John Cailey, founder of Dreamtime Learning, on designing with courage in the age of AI. Mr. Russell John Cailey is the founder of Elham Studio, a visionary designer transforming education systems worldwide. His journey began at Think Global School, the world's first traveling high school, and has since shaped future-ready learning across 20+ countries. At Elham, he builds cutting-edge school infrastructure, real-world curricula, and future-focused models. A TEDx speaker and founder of the Hakuba Forum, he advises both schools and Fortune 500s, always championing education that prepares learners for an ever-changing world. Over to you, Mr. Cailey.
I'm going to play into the crowd now as we've got so much energy at the front. If you find a partner, if you want to stand up, feel free. Just find someone. Find a partner, find someone next to you, introduce yourself quickly. We're going to do something. We're going to break the ice a little bit. Just find someone, say hello quickly, stand up, shake it off. It was a long night last night. We take ourselves so seriously sometimes. Sometimes we need to relax. So, now you've said hello, you've grabbed someone, very quick, you are going to rate your performance from yesterday in the form of a statue. You are going to create a personal statue that reflects your own performance at the conference yesterday. So if you were tired, it would be that. So off you go. Embarrass yourself, break the ice, hit a statue. Us teachers love self-assessment, so let's do it. So some self-assessment, your own performance from yesterday, statue, go. Statue. There you go. Perfect. Okay, wasn't so hard. Okay, great. Now we've shaken off last night, let's go. So, if you were here 2 years ago, there was a band at the side of the stage that would kick you off and play. So the pressure isn't as much this year, so I like that. So, let's start with a statistic, or a set of statistics. Just take a look at this. This is how we view teachers. It's pretty alarming. The left-hand graph shows teaching as a prestigious profession, which is a Harris poll. The Gallup poll shows parents wanting their children to teach. So just absorb that for a second. It's pretty concerning. Very concerning, yeah, absolutely. So I definitely don't want this opening to be a downer, but I do want to set the scene in terms of our urgency for change. We attend a lot of conferences, we attend a lot of these events, and we talk a lot. My question is, that move, anyone who follows me on LinkedIn will know that I post a lot on that move from reimagination, a word that slightly annoys me, to move to redesign, build, or design from zero. So that move to actually take a chance and actually build something from zero. And I think this shows the urgency that we need to change course pretty quickly, because many of you are school leaders. I live in Dubai, and what I'm hearing on the ground from every school principal I speak to is hiring is a nightmare. And It won't matter our opinion on frameworks, curriculums, and assessment if there's no one in the system. It will just be it will be irrelevant if we do not have the bodies to provide the service of education. So let's crack on. So when I gave a TEDx talk a year ago in China, I outlined 3 things. And I want this to kind of anchor the talk. And hopefully this is still true, I hope. As leaders, I believe that we have to unlearn. We have mostly been programmed in a particular way to drill and test. The profession is largely dominant on us, what I'm doing now, ironically, stood and talking. How do we shift to more moderator facilitation role? 2, when given freedom and trust, which I'll talk about in a second, what I've learned is that young people and learners very rarely disappoint us. So we've got unlearn, we've got trust, and the 3rd is, I think, in terms of everything that we keep saying over the last few years, and it's definitely building momentum, which is great, but I think the time to act is probably either past or it is now. Like, how are we going to sandbox some of these ideas? How are we going to shift curriculum? And I'm not talking about what we did at Think Global School, which I'll talk about in a minute, which is 100% redesign, but even if it's a 20% sandbox, a 20% prototype, can we do that? Is that an opportunity? And I'll give you some examples of what we're doing in Dubai over the next few minutes. So, I'm Russell. I've met many of you before, so I won't over-egg this pudding too much, but I was part of Think Global School, which was the world's first traveling school. So we would go to 4 countries every year. We would immerse ourselves in culture, language, faith, food, everything. And the students did a predominantly 60%, 70% project-based learning curriculum. The assessment model was very different. We assessed through portfolio, and I think that's an important theme that I'll focus on through the talk. And we did a lot of exit interviews and reflection. The portfolio was a very dynamic, and it could pivot to AI, for example. AI would not have worried us at Think Global because the portfolio could pivot to AI. We didn't really worry about cheating, and because the learning and the portfolio encompassed a lot of reflection. So this is me on the Botswana, Zimbabwe, and South Africa border. That was 8 weeks in the field, which is why I look terrible, and it's with 30 students who traveled with us. This wasn't a camp. These students stay with us 2 or 3 years, and it's in a fully accredited high school. And yes, they go to university, which is always the question. Yes, they do. And we met local people. We learnt from people who live in the country, and we came to India many times. So we learned from people in the country. And for a 17-year-old, hearing from Craig and Sakayo, who were 2 of the rangers in Botswana, I'm sure you can imagine when a 17-year-old arrives in Botswana, they're probably anti many things, and one of them was obviously hunting. And I'll give you this example to how place can massively pivot your opinion. So imagine for a 17-year-old arriving in Botswana and hearing from Craig and Sakayo that actually they were pro-hunting. The people who give their life to protect the animals were pro-hunting. Because that one person who comes from Europe, US, wherever, and hunts, that one payment pays their staff for a whole year and allows them to protect every other animal in their particular region. So place really was dynamic for us in terms of breaking stereotypes and breaking agendas. And India was no different when we were here. And this is the kind of things we did. So this is the learners in Botswana. This is us actually in Mumbai learning cricket. Test match isn't going well for England, so we'll change. But so we've really tried to immerse ourselves into what matters in that country. So sport and cricket was a big part when we arrived in India. And why did we do this? Because when we were in Hiroshima, in Japan, we were actually a different curriculum. And it was very much a test-heavy curriculum. This was back in 2012. And we did something called a We Explore. And in the We Explore, we would go to a different city for a week. And that city was Tokyo. And we arrived in Tokyo, and I could not find the grade 12s. I didn't know where they were. And they were good kids, so I knew they weren't causing any chaos, but I was still concerned. And then a member of staff came to me and said, oh, they're all in their rooms revising for the tests that were around the corner. So you can imagine, we've arrived in Tokyo, one of the most exciting cities on earth, and our curriculum model provided them with I'm going to sit in my room and test. And these were diligent kids, so this is not a criticism. This was an effect that the model had. They couldn't engage in place, so we had a crisis. We had an internal crisis, and we said, we are probably the one school in the world that could change. Even if it's the death of the school, let's take a chance. And if we fall on our sword, then so be it. So we designed the Changemaker curriculum, and we had experiences like this. And we didn't look back, and that's the truth. And everything we built was on these three things. It was a curriculum and an existence that was engaging, it gave the learners autonomy, and it built a sense of community. They were the three things. I just said before to the ladies at the front, we're having a conversation about this, and the idea that the power of our curriculum was we tried to subtract, not add. Anyone can add. Anyone can stuff into the box. We felt the real talent was actually subtracting. And we built our curriculum on core values taken from around the world. Different cultures, different people, what drives them. Meraki Satya Kaizen, love, truth, improve. We had 8 altogether, but that's just a sample of the core values we tried to build our philosophy from. And like I said before, the power was looking at a map and saying, we're going from A to B, let's remove all the other roads. We don't need them. Let's simplify for these young people. And that was the heartbeat of the curriculum. We didn't just added, we looked at the map and we said, we're going from here to here, everything else can go for the time being. And we'll either add it later or we'll get really good at going from A to B. Then we moved into R&D and professional development. So once I left my role as director of Think Global School, we went around the world and we did short hit, and some of the members of the audience might have been at an event we did in Mumbai once, but we went to places like Tunisia, the Great Barrier Reef, which was an amazing partnership, Australia and China, and we taught them this style of learning. But to be honest, it wasn't enough. You can only do so much in a week. You can only do so much in 2 weeks. So, in that being said, we had to pause and then reassess. And as you all know in the room, something else then happened, artificial intelligence. So that shook everything up. Everything we thought we knew was then given a huge question mark. And we've all seen the headlines, and just take a glance at that. The world in 2021 at the launch of ChatGPT changed substantially. In nanoseconds, you could pull information that took us, probably in the room, hours at the library. And we could access indigenous culture. We could look at how robotics and artificial intelligence looks at faith. Has anyone seen the movie The Creator? Has anyone seen that movie? Great movie, where the artificial intelligence actually become more believers than the humans who become secular. Great spin on things. And then AI as a co-pilot. So we built Elham Studio post that, and we decided we were going to then design long-term, deeper projects, which were built on passion, purpose, and mastery. We were saying, okay, let's get into the sandbox and really design and help schools change this 20-25%, maybe not 100. Because if you look at places like UNESCO and look at that top right-hand box, this is employment on this axis, and then steady skills, core skills on this. And I want you focusing on the top right-hand box. This is what our young people are going to need according to UNESCO. And my question is to you, is your school preparing for this? AI and big data, tech literacy, creative thinking, resilience. Talent management, I don't think is necessarily a school thing, but again, it will affect schools. We have to manage our talent. Analytical thinking, leadership, systems thinking, motivation, and empathy. That is what UNESCO says are the skills of the future. Is your curriculum, if we pause again, is your curriculum preparing your young people for that? Because if not, slight problem. Because this is someone told me once, a great friend told me once, everything follows the elephant's tail, and if the elephant's tail is exams, we are going to have the same problem. It's just going to repeat. And if we are building tomorrow's innovators, when success means sitting silently for 3 hours, I still think we've got a problem. Those incredible warriors who were on the stage yesterday, we don't measure that. We didn't imagine measuring that through an exam. It would be ridiculous. It'd be ridiculous. That is measured through a journey. Let's design a system that allows our young people, I'm not saying delete exams completely, they can still play a part, but it's the volume that they're playing that's the problem. And the DNA of the future, we believe, is about learning by doing. How do we use AI, as the moderator said just before, to empower and enhance learning? And how potentially can we design curriculum that can be interdisciplinary, that can break the silos that only really exist in schools? Can you imagine designing a business in the way schools do, never looking cross-disciplinary? It's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. I'm going to design a business, but I'm never going to look at finance. I'm never going to look at sociology. I'm never going to look at anthropology. We would never do that, yet we do it in schools. And the outside world doesn't care. The outside world is moving forward. This is from yesterday, I found this. I pivoted the presentation very quickly. Burnley, a new Premier League team in England, playing Lazio next week, the first ever VR match. You can put the VR headset on, and you can be in the audience. You'll be fully immersed. It's the first one. Overdue. I think we all expected that maybe quicker, but that happens this week in a pre-season friendly. The digital twin market. Anyone heard of digital twin? You will have a digital twin by 2030 that will do all your boring admin work. It will think like you, it will be like you, it will email like you, it will answer phone calls like you, and they estimate that it will be worth $150 billion by 2030. I remember hearing about this in 2018, I thought it was ridiculous. Now it's $150 billion potential market. Anyone see this on X the other day? Audrey Cruz, paralyzed in a car accident 20 years ago. Through Neuralink, she wrote her name. So this is the technology that's going on outside the walls of a school. How will this impact us? We have to start thinking we are not siloed. We do not live in an incubator. All this stuff is going to affect us eventually. So in my new book that's out next month, I try and focus on this. I try and make the argument that we have to stop waiting for permission. We keep waiting for permission to change. Ravi hosts these incredible events. We talk about these things, and then we're still waiting for permission. We have to push forward. And there's many leaders in this room that I know through conversations with you all absolutely can push some of this change of education forward. And I think as well, with artificial intelligence, we are going to change our workflow, which is a big argument in the book. We are going to work very intensely rather than same. We're going to rest, reflect, and then we'll go again. I think workflows are going to change with artificial intelligence, but we do not forget ancient wisdom. Modern tools, yes, but there's ancient truths and ancient wisdom that's vitally important that we should honor. And this is a sneak peek within the book. We are moving from 30-year careers, 4-year degrees, 5 years. Imagine having a strategic plan from 2019. Pandemic hits, then AI hits. Completely irrelevant. Your strategic plan is gone. So therefore, we are moving to 18-month skills, 6-month learning cycles, and 72-hour rapid prototyping. And I give the evidence in the book of where companies have done this and seen tremendous results. Because, as we were just talking about at the front, there's 3 things I think we need to focus on in schools. That is, are our objectives and our competencies forward-facing, future-facing? What's driving your learning in terms of objectives and competencies? Do you have design cycles that make sense? Or is it just mush from 20 years ago that doesn't make sense for this new age? What's the arc of your learning? You know, what's the design cycle from start, middle, and end? And then, and if you are going to replace exams, what I would advise you is do not create a vacuum. Fill it intentionally. We filled it with portfolios. Doesn't mean you have to follow that, but be intentional about what fills the vacuum, what fills the void. It took us probably about 6 years to fully figure out the portfolio. It was a long journey. You won't jump from the frying pan to another frying pan. You have to go through a bit of fire, and that's okay. And this is some of the work my team's doing at the moment. We are trying to design curriculums that are truly cross-disciplinary, that aren't siloed in geography, sociology, history. I'm a historian. You still look at finance, you still look at politics. So how can our curriculums be designed where Forge, for example, as a category is around building. Doesn't matter the discipline. What will you build? How will you build? And then, how will we create learning journeys across galaxies and Andromedas to actually then bring that journey to life? So as you can see, what my team are beginning to do through architecture is creating learning pathways through these learning disciplines. And how can we connect these competencies? Just like Ravi's done here, we try and bring some of these things together as the as said in the introduction, we host the Hakuba Forum, which brings teachers together to have conversations just like we're having now. So again, we are trying to put our actions beyond just the reimagination. We feel there's an obligation to act. And just to wrap up very quickly, remember, education from those who designed it I don't think they meant it to stick and be forever. I think the people who created the educational models in the 1950s and 60s, if they looked upon them in 2025 and said they're still the same, they'd probably be quite surprised. So just like a sandcastle, it's probably meant to erode if we let it, and that's okay. It's okay if things change. It's okay if things erode. So just to wrap up, as we move forward, and this is the main message of the book, how do we lead, how do we learn, how do we thrive in this new world of AI? That's just a little forward for the book. Thank you for listening. Thank you for having me, Ravi. Have a great conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cailey. May I please request Mr. Ravi Santlani to felicitate Mr. Russell John Cailey? Can we have you on stage, sir?